Yes, now I am recording.
Welcome to the Elliott Podcast. Oh, sorry. Try that again. Welcome to the Elliott Confidential Podcast. I'm Christopher Elliott, and I'm here with my son, Aren Elliott. How are you, Aren?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Where are we today?
Today we are in Istanbul.
Istanbul, Turkey. Yeah. We've been here for about 2 weeks. We came here from Ireland. We were in Ireland a good long time. What a switch it's been, though. I mean, everything from the food, the people, the weather, the language, it's all different here.
Weather's more or less the same, though. Unfortunately, it's gotten pretty bad.
I know the last couple of days have been a little bit cold, but when we got here, though, it was warmish and sunny and nice.
Yeah.
So what would you say has been the highlight of Turkey so far?
Well, I think the highlight for me has been the food. And it's not the restaurant food, really, but it's going to the grocery stores, going to the bakeries, eating simit and breakfast sauce. We'll
yes.
talk about that in a moment.
I know that, but you set up the question of the week really nicely, which is, start that again. But you set up the question of the week really nicely, which is, have you ever visited a city that has changed the way that you think about food? For example, maybe you went to Paris and you thought bread was only, the Wonder Bread that you get in the grocery store, and then you had delicious baguettes and all the other wonderful bread that they have in France. Changed the way that you thought about food. Yeah. Have you ever been to a city that has changed the way you thought, shifted your paradigms about food? Have you, Aren, do you think?
Well, definitely here, but there are places I've been where I've discovered that there's a new dimension to food that I really didn't know. Like, for example, going to Chile and trying their produce, where I learned to love prunes for the first time.
Yes.
Along with...
Barta.
Yes.
Just the avocados. They're so good. Yes. My shifting experience is, I would say, was France, because I didn't think that food could taste that good. And then I visited Paris, and we had some amazing meals there. And I know it's a cliche. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, Paris. But really, it was pretty incredible.
I think Japan is also one of those places.
Oh, yeah.
Because their food style is very different.
And then South Africa, too. I had a really good time in Cape Town just sampling the different food. It changed the way that I thought about food in terms of spices, too, because they used a lot of different interesting spices. Kind of an amalgamation of Indian spices and African spices. Anyway, So question of the week, have you ever been to a city that has changed the way you thought about food? Tell us about it in the comments, and we'll read your comments in the next podcast. In the meantime, Istanbul. Wow. We could probably talk for hours and hours. This is actually our second visit to Istanbul. We were here about 2.5 years ago with Aydin, and we didn't spend that much time in Istanbul, though, because we went out to other cities in Turkey. This time, we got an Airbnb here in town, and it's really a basement apartment in a very central area of Istanbul, and we've been able to explore the city. So let's talk about the touristy things that we've done. We did the really extra touristy things, which are...
Well, we visited the Blue Mosque, we visited the Hippodrome, we visited the Grand Bazaar.
Hagia Sophia.
And got a hair transplant.
Oh, God.
No.
So we did the touristy things here in Istanbul. So what did we exactly do?
Well, we visited the Hippodrome, the Hagia Sophia, the Blue Mosque. We visited the Grand Bazaar. Yeah.
Yeah. Just what all the tourists do when they're here.
Yeah. Like a lot of tourists. We have to visit Old Town.
That's right. And the interesting thing is that the Hagia Sophia actually opened the second level now. So that's where you go. You actually pay to get in now, and you go to the top floor and you look down. And then if you want to pray, if you're Muslim, you go in the ground floor and you pray there.
Yeah.
So that's a relatively new thing. And it used to actually be a museum. And before that, it was a church. So it's kind of it's a fascinating building.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that the real highlight of going to Istanbul was us just being able to explore on our own, walking along the Bosphorus. We took a boat ride across to the other side, and we actually visited a new hotel that opened there. Yes. And then we saw another property that just opened, the Peninsula, which is really beautiful. It's in the old customs house. But I think the best part was just walking around town. What was that like?
Well, Istanbul is much like other European cities, like, for example, Lisbon, but it's a very unique, really, you have to experience it for yourself. Just walk around and you see all of the little vendors, the streetcars selling simit, the ferries going back and
Okay,
forth.
hang on. Let's talk about, I don't think everyone knows what simit is, so please explain, because
it's a Turkish bagel.
Oh, it's so good.
Turkish bagel covered with sesame seeds, but not like sesame seeds like a normal bagel. Like, they're different.
They're like lightly toasted. Let me take a detour, because this morning we did our normal walk, which is over to one of the large malls.
The city's mall.
Yes,
in
Scott City.
Machka.
Right, and we did a simit tour. Simit is divine. It's like the best thing that you can find here, and because it's a bagel, like a bagel, there are a lot of different ways you can eat a simit. One of the traditional ways that you can eat a simit is with a mixture of honey and tahini. You mix it together, and then you put it on I almost call it a bagel. You put it on the simit. But a simit is a little bit like a pretzel too, in that you twist the dough, and it's not fried, it's baked, but then you have the sesame seeds on it, and those are lightly toasted. And when you get it right out of the oven, it is the best thing ever.
It is. And, there's so much that you can do in Turkish cuisine to also eat it. It's not just Turkish honey, which is that mixture of tahini and honey.
Yeah.
It's also, we've discovered that Turkish sauces they come in many varieties. I don't know what all of them are, but there's one called breakfast sauce.
Oh, yes.
There's one I tried the other day that was more like an onion sauce, but it's kind of like, it hits the same flavor profile as maybe hummus.
Yeah.
And also it sort of fills the same role as hummus.
Yes, I think that you said that already. I know that you like hummus, Aren. Yeah, that breakfast sauce is amazing. We've been eating it almost every day now, and it makes me want to come back to Istanbul, because the food here really is pretty incredible, especially the simit.
Well, I think being here has really inspired me to take some liberties with my own cooking and honestly use a lot more tomato paste, pepper paste. It's not just hot pepper paste, but sweet pepper
also
paste.
Bulgur, a lot of onions and garlic.
Garlic.
So good stuff.
Making
That's
things that
amazing.
With lots of peppers and tomatoes.
Yeah.
And those are really it's the solution for Turkish food is more tomatoes, more peppers, and more onions and garlic, and you add that all together and you get some really divine food. So breakfast sauce, for example, is basically tomato paste, and it's also pepper paste and a little bit of walnuts, and a bunch of other things.
I want to talk about the cats in Istanbul, because there was a very famous documentary about cats in Istanbul, and the documentary suggested that people worship cats here. True or false?
I think people here treat cats very, very well.
Yes, they do.
But they don't worship them.
Oh, I saw someone worshiping a cat today.
But I think that it's good if you're a crazy cat lady, but you don't want to destroy your home. Istanbul's great for you, because you can have as many cats as you want. All you need is money for cat food. And you get out, find a place with lots of cats and feed them and pet them. And we see people doing that over here. There's a tiny, tiny park, and every morning one of the crazy cat ladies, I'm not in a mean way, but one of the cat women brings over food and feeds them.
Okay. I'd like to describe the scene, because I think this is fascinating. We're on a ground floor apartment, but it's actually more of a basement apartment. So in the living room, our window looks out onto the street, but it's at street level. So when I open the curtains to the living room, about 2 or 3 mornings ago, it was maybe 6:30 in the morning, I hear, the first thing I see are all these cats coming by. It's like 5, 6 cats coming by. And then I see this woman pulling, one of those wheeled shopping carts, that you just are pulling, and it's filled to the top with cat food. And then I see behind her It's like the Pied Piper. All these cats. It had to be like a dozen, 2 dozen cats following her. And she saw me looking at her, and she looks at me and she winks. And she kept going. And then I saw her over there, like not even 2 doors away from our apartment, open up the bag and take the cat food out. And the cats all came over and ate. It was a massive feeding frenzy. People here love cats. You see things, normally you don't see like guys hanging out and petting cats, but you do here. There's a lot of guys that are really into cats.
Yeah, you see guys doing a lot of things that wouldn't be considered very masculine, like drinking lots of tea. But yeah.
Yes, and petting cats.
Yes.
But they're also smoking, which I guess is more masculine. I don't know.
Yes.
We'll have to do that question at some point, like pet cities. But this week's question, though, is what city has shifted your opinion of food or shifted your paradigms when it comes to food? So that's definitely, we want your opinions on that. So who would you advise visit a place like Istanbul?
Well, I think if you really like history, then this is definitely the place. Because,
oh, yeah.
This place is full of history, Roman history, Byzantine history, Ottoman history, lots of history, just in Istanbul. Of course, there are other parts that have been, they're archaeological sites, and those are definitely interesting, but those are more towards the eastern part of the country. So if you're interested in history, if you're interested in Turkish food, it's definitely something very different, like a lot of tomato, a lot of spices. It's not what you're expecting.
Not what you would get at a normal Turkish restaurant.
No.
It's very diverse.
Yes, and of course, the food here, there are many different types of restaurants. You'll be blown away because it's nothing like what you're expecting.
And then there's the desserts, of course.
Of course.
The desserts are unlike anything that I've ever seen. I mean, look, you can go into other European cities and go to a patisserie and get some really great stuff. Great baked items and cakes and things like that. But here you have the whole Turkish delight scene. And they love making confections with all sorts of nuts and fruits and dried fruits. And it's really incredible.
Yeah.
I like Turkish delights. I just want to be on the record as saying that. I like Turkish delights.
I'm not a big fan. I like baklava. I know that's more of a Greek thing, but I think that there are some good Turkish desserts that we've had. Definitely, though, I'm more interested in the savory stuff. Like, I really like the domates, which are the grape leaf stuff, things stuffed with grape,
yeah,
stuffed with things.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. So from my perspective, having spoken to some tour guides and some other people who live here, the best time to come to a place like Istanbul would be late spring or early fall. Mm-hmm. Avoid the summer because everyone else comes here during the summer. And the winters can be cold, but if you don't mind the cold, you might be able to find a really good rate on a hotel or an apartment rental. Do go and see all of the big sites. So the Old Town, the Grand Bazaar, the Hagia Sophia, the Blue Mosque, the Grotto. Do all of those things, and the Hippodrome, and then go and experience Istanbul like a local would.
Yeah.
That would be my advice, and I, at least until my next trip, which I never expected to come back so soon, but here I am.
Well, one of the things I really like about being in Istanbul as a pedestrian is that you don't have to spend so much time sitting in a car.
Yeah.
For most of the cases, it actually takes less time to walk to a place than drive. So
that's true.
I think that I'm really grateful that we had the opportunity to just walk around, because otherwise we'd spend so much time sitting that it would make any sort of discovery really difficult.
Yeah. Bring some good hiking shoes with you because this place has lots of cobblestones and the traction is not always the best, especially when it rains. So don't take your stiletto heels to a place like Istanbul unless you're just going to go out one night on the town. But for walking, you really need good shoes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to stop right here and pull up our...
We only got 3 questions.
I know. Well, we got plenty to talk about. Where is that? Limerick Confidential? Okay. In our last podcast, we were in Limerick, Ireland, and we survived... I'm going to start that again. In our last podcast, we were in Limerick, Ireland, and our question was... One more time. In our last podcast, we were in Limerick, Ireland, and our question was, have you ever visited a place where you've overstayed your welcome? Susan said, we're retired so we can stay for longer times than when we were working, but we booked 5 weeks in Panama City. Oh boy. Okay. It was 4 weeks and 6 days too long. It was too hot to even lie by the pool midday. We went to a number of mostly empty indoor malls and saw a lot of movies in the air-conditioned theaters. There's an interesting museum, a very humid forest with sloths, and of course, the Panama Canal. Wow! It sounds like she had a very similar experience to what we had when we were in Panama City.
Yeah. Panama is really interesting, but I have mixed feelings about it. I think that I liked, the canal, the nature part about it, and I liked the city part.
See, Aaron, I don't know, when you say it's an interesting place, then it could mean so many different things.
Yeah, well, I think that's the point.
Yeah, right, okay.
KP writes, I went to Finland to visit my son and wife. Got to see a lot of Finland and enjoyed every minute until my daughter-in-law took me to the airport. Nothing was said, but body language and tone of voice told me I had overstayed approximately 13 days.
13 days.
But most of the adventuring was just my son and me, by her choice, I believe. Happy I saw what I did in that one and only visit.
Oh, mother-in-law, huh? Yeah. Well, we could talk about that, but it's a family podcast. Yeah. We don't want to use any... strong language. And James says, I love Western Ireland, especially Galway. We missed Galway when we were in Ireland, but we'll just have to come back. There's a couple of places that I still would like to go to. Well, that's it for the LA Confidential podcast. We are off to our next destination, which is... Qatar. We'll be in Doha for a few days, and then on to the next place will be, which I'm not telling you where it is. It's going to be a surprise, but we will... report from there, wherever that is, in our next podcast. See you then.
Yeah.